Welcome back to Justice Under Review. We know you've been waiting, so without further ado, let's dive right into today's story. They thought she was just another helpless statistic. They thought her silence was weakness and her poverty was a crime. Inside the polished walls of Courtroom 4B in the Cook County Superior Court, Judge William Baxter didn't just deny Mrs. Clara Washington justice. He laughed right in her face. He mocked her struggles while a greedy landlord sat there smiling, convinced the eviction was already sealed. But they never noticed the man sitting quietly in the back row. He wasn't there to beg for mercy. He was there to deliver it. When the judge pushed too far, that quiet man stood up, and the laughter died in an instant. Because the son of the woman they were tormenting wasn't just a spectator. He was FBI, and he had the proof. The air in that courtroom smelled of floor wax and old fear, a scent Mrs. Clara Washington knew too well after 72 years of trying to outrun it. She sat at the defendant's table, hands folded tight over her worn leather purse, the one her late husband had given her on their 30th anniversary. Her knuckles stood out pale against the dark skin of her trembling fingers. To her left sat Victor Langford, the kind of man whose cologne cost more than Clara's entire monthly grocery budget. He kept checking his watch, tapping a manicured finger on the mahogany table like the whole thing bored him. He owned Langford Properties, a real estate empire that had been devouring the historic East Side neighborhood of Chicago like a slow cancer. "All rise," the bailiff droned. The heavy oak door swung open, and Judge William Baxter swept in. He looked like he'd been born in those robes, silver hair perfectly styled, jaw sharp from expensive dental work, and eyes that viewed everyone in his courtroom as nothing more than an inconvenience. "Be seated," he muttered without looking up. "Langford Properties versus Clara Washington. Eviction for non-payment and breach of lease. Let's make this quick." Clara tried to stand, her arthritic knees protesting, but Baxter snapped at her before she could speak. "Sit down, Mrs. Washington. You'll speak when spoken to. Counsel, proceed." Langford's lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Harlan Brooks, rose without even buttoning his jacket. He knew this was going to be a slaughter. "Your Honor, the defendant has failed to pay rent for several months. We also have evidence of unsanitary conditions violating the lease. We're asking for immediate eviction and damages." Clara gasped. "That's a lie," she whispered, hand flying to her mouth. "Order," Baxter said, clearly amused. "Mrs. Washington, emotional outbursts belong on daytime television, not in my courtroom." In the back row, a man in a gray hoodie and thrift store jeans sat alone, head down, pretending to read a crumpled newspaper. To anyone glancing his way, he looked like just another guy escaping the cold. But his posture was too straight, his eyes too sharp and dangerously calm, never once leaving Judge Baxter's face. That man was Caleb Washington, and he was counting every second. "Mr. Langford," the judge said, turning with a warm smile, "you're a pillar of this community. Your donations to the policeman's ball are legendary. It pains me to see you chasing scraps like this." Langford stood, feigning humility. "Thank you, Judge. We try to offer affordable housing, but when tenants take advantage, it hurts everyone." Baxter nodded, then turned back to Clara with pure disgust. "Mrs. Washington, do you have proof of payment?" She rose again, hands shaking as she opened her purse. "Yes, Your Honor. I paid Mr. Langford in cash every month, just like he asked. He came to my door himself and said the online system was broken." She pulled out a stack of handwritten receipts, each signed in a lazy scrawl. Brooks chuckled. "Those are obviously fake, Your Honor. My client doesn't accept cash. It's against policy. Anyone could have forged that signature." Baxter didn't even glance at the papers. He leaned back, smirking. "Cash? In this day and age, do you really expect me to believe a woman of your background had that kind of money lying around? I saved it, Clara cried, voice cracking. My pension, weekend cleaning jobs, I worked for every dollar. Cleaning houses, Baxter repeated, letting the words linger like something foul. I'm sure you do, but that doesn't give you the right to squat in Mr. Langford's property. I've lived there 20 years. I raised my son there. And where is this son? Baxter asked, looking around the room theatrically. Is he here to pay your bills, or is he as imaginary as the rent? Laughter rippled through the gallery. The bailiff smirked. Langford hid a grin behind his hand. Clara seemed to shrink right there in her chair. He's working, Your Honor. He's away. Convenient, Baxter scoffed. Probably locked up somewhere, if I had to guess. In the back, Caleb slowly folded his newspaper. His jaw tightened, pulsing with the storm he was barely holding back. The humiliation wasn't accidental. This was entertainment for them. Your Honor, please, Clara begged, tears finally falling. Just look at the receipts. Mr. Langford signed them at my kitchen table. He even drank my sweet tea while he did it. I don't drink tea, Mrs. Washington. I drink scotch, Langford quipped, drawing more chuckles. Baxter twirled his gavel. Let me explain the law to you, since you seem confused. In civil matters like this, the burden is on you. No bank records, no checks, just your word against a respected businessman. Judgment for the plaintiff. The eviction is granted. You must vacate immediately, and due to your disruptive behavior and what I'm ruling as forged evidence, I'm adding damages. Clara grabbed the table. Please, I have nowhere to go. My husband died in that bedroom. My whole life is in those walls. You can't just put me out on the street in winter. Baxter's face turned cold. I can and I will. You're a nuisance, Mrs. Washington. Langford leaned toward his lawyer and whispered loud enough for her to hear. Tell the crew to start gutting the place first thing. We'll be done by noon. Clara collapsed into her chair, face in her hands. Her quiet, dignified sobs filled the room, the sound of a woman who had followed every rule, paid every bill, loved every neighbor, and was still being crushed. Baxter raised the gavel. Justice under review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories. This court finds in favor of Langford Properties. Case closed. Objection. The single word sliced through the air like a gunshot. Baxter froze, gavel hovering. Who said that? He demanded. I did. Caleb stood. No longer the quiet stranger, he walked down the aisle, 6'3", shoulders broad, boots thudding like a heartbeat. He passed the gate separating the public from the court. The bailiff stepped forward. Sir, you can't cross. Caleb stopped 10 feet from the bench and looked straight at his mother. Clara's tear-filled eyes widened. Caleb, baby, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in D.C. I'm here for you, Mama, he said softly. Then he turned that glacial stare on the judge. You asked where her son was. You joked about state facilities. You laughed at her receipts. I'll hold you in contempt, Baxter screamed, slamming the gavel. Bailiff, cuffs now! The bailiff grabbed Caleb's arm. In one smooth motion, Caleb shrugged free, reached into his hoodie, and flipped open a leather wallet. The gold FBI badge flashed under the lights. Special Agent Caleb Washington, Financial Crimes and Public Corruption Division. Officer, if you touch me again, you'll be charged with assaulting a federal agent. Step back. The bailiff backed away fast, face pale. The room went dead silent. Langford's smirk vanished. Brooks suddenly found his briefcase fascinating. Baxter swallowed hard. Agent Washington, I didn't realize Mrs. Washington had family in law enforcement, but this is a local civil matter. You have no jurisdiction. Caleb's smile was anything but friendly. Actually, William, I have jurisdiction wherever federal crimes are happening, and this stopped being local the moment you took a bribe to fast-track the eviction. Gasps filled the room. That's outrageous, Baxter roared, face purple. I'll have your badge. Caleb pulled out a small black recorder and set it on the table beside his mother's hand. The director signed the wiretap warrant himself. He pressed play. Langford's voice crackled out. She's stubborn, William. She's got receipts. She pays cash. Then Baxter's clear reply. Don't worry about the receipts. I'll call them forgeries. Just get the fee into the account by Friday. Same as usual. Get her out. I've got a buyer for condos. Clara gasped. Baxter slumped like a man who'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Caleb leaned into Langford's space. You didn't just evict a tenant. You evicted the mother of the lead agent on the racketeering case against your shell companies. He turned back to the judge. William Baxter, get off that bench. You're in the defendant's chair now. Baxter looked desperately at the bailiff, but the man had already stepped aside, hands up, protecting his pension. You can't do this, Baxter sputtered. Not anymore, Caleb said, voice low. He tapped his earpiece. Move in. The doors burst open. FBI agents and windbreakers flooded the room, followed by state troopers. Langford panicked and bolted for the judge's chambers, shoving Brooks aside. Caleb pivoted and kicked the oak gate shut with bone-jarring force, catching Langford in the gut. Before the man could breathe, Caleb had him slammed face first onto the table. Victor Langford, you're under arrest for bribery, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit extortion, and RICO violations. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Handcuffs clicked tight. Two agents moved on Baxter. Do not touch me, he shrieked. I have immunity. Not for felony corruption caught on federal wiretaps, one agent replied, spinning him around and cuffing him like any other criminal. The black robes bunched up, stripping away every ounce of dignity. The gallery erupted. Residents of the East Side, who had suffered under Langford's evictions and Baxter's rulings for years, cheering, shouting, "Justice!" and "Take him down!" Caleb handed Langford off, then blocked Baxter's path down the stairs. The judge's eyes were wet with terror. Agent Washington, please. I can help. I can give you the mayor. Caleb pointed to his mother. Apologize. Tell her you were wrong. Tell her she's not a nuisance. Baxter's voice cracked as he obeyed. I apologize, Mrs. Washington. I was wrong. The eviction is void. Clara walked to the railing, looked at the cuffs, then up at his tear-streaked face. I forgive you, William, she said softly. Not because you deserve it, but because I won't let your hate live in my heart. But when you meet God, you make sure you tell him the truth, because he doesn't take bribes. She turned away. Take him away, Caleb. The courtroom became a crime scene. Agents photographed, seized files, boxed laptops. Caleb sat up in the witness box while Clara sipped water nearby, a trooper treating her with quiet respect. Brooks sat across from him, tie undone, sweating. I'm just an attorney. I didn't know about the bribes. Caleb let the silence stretch until Brooks squirmed. I've been tracking Langford for months. I know about the Cayman accounts, the Delaware shells, and the one you signed for Baxter's mortgage. Brooks choked. Caleb leaned in. Langford's soft. He's never seen the inside of a cell. How long before he flips on you? 5 minutes? 10? Brooks broke. He told me to set up the accounts. I was just following orders. Caleb slid a notepad across. Give me the full list. Council members, the district attorney, everyone who looked the other way on the fires. Names, bribes, everything. Do that and you get witness protection. Otherwise, you're looking at years in federal prison. Disbarred, disgraced, Gone. Brooks picked up the pen with shaking hands. It's not just the council, it's the district attorney. That's why no one ever investigates the fires, the properties that won't sell, the tenants who won't leave. Sometimes, accidents happen. Caleb felt ice down his spine as he glanced at his mother. He pointed at the pad. Write it all down, every name, every fire. Later, a text came from the team at Langford's office. Safe drilled open, ledger found. Caleb drove Clara home first, kissed her forehead on the porch of the humble building that started everything. Stay inside, Mama. Lock the deadbolt. Don't open for anyone but me. Caleb, you poked the devil today, she said, gripping his arm. Be careful. I'm counting on it, he answered grimly. At Langford Properties headquarters downtown, agents were already hauling boxes. Justice under review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories. Caleb flashed his badge, rode to the penthouse, and opened the ledger. It was a diary of corruption, payments to inspectors, police, fire marshals. Then he saw the final entry, a huge payment to the architect for final clearance on the Chicago revitalization project, with a note beside Clara Washington's name. Obstacle removed. They hadn't just planned to evict her. They were going to bulldoze the entire block. Caleb called the federal prosecutor. Offer Langford a deal. If he wears a wire and makes the drop to the architect, arson and felony murder charges come off the table. Tell him he's got minutes to choose between dying in prison or walking into protection. That cold winter night, inside a plain plumbing van parked near the Grand Chicago Hotel, Caleb hunched over monitors while the tactical team checked weapons. Langford sat wired in a limousine, heart racing, briefcase of marked bills in his lap. Caleb coached him through the earpiece. You're not a prisoner tonight. You're a partner in crime. Get him to say the words: arson, demolition, intent. No metaphors. Langford entered the penthouse. Mayor Theodore Grant stood by the window, tumbler in hand, city lights behind him. Every Chicagoan knew that face from billboards and campaign posters. Victor, you're late, Grant boomed, all charm. He opened the briefcase, ran his hand over the cash, and smiled. This covers the final payments for EPA clearance and the demolition crew. Contractors roll at dawn. Langford pressed. What about the Washington place? She's still there, stubborn, neighbors watching. Grant's smile vanished. There won't be any protest. Accidents happen in old buildings. Faulty wiring, gas leaks. It's tragic, but anyone inside becomes collateral damage. The fire marshals already paid to delay response. Caleb's knuckles went white on the desk. We have it, all units, go. The penthouse doors exploded inward. Flashbangs lit the room white. Agents swarmed. Caleb walked straight through the smoke, grabbed Grant by the lapels, and slammed him against the wall. You wanted to talk about collateral damage, Caleb growled. That's my mother. He dumped the briefcase upside down. Cash rained over the mayor like confetti. Theodore Grant, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, arson, wire fraud, and RICO violations. Cuffs clicked. As agents dragged Grant out, Caleb looked down at the snow-covered city and keyed his radio. The architect is in custody. Demolition canceled. Fire marshals next. The trial of the Chicago Syndicate became the most watched event in the state's history. After months of preparation, the hammer fell hard. Clara sat in the front row every day, Sunday hat on, head high. She was no longer the defendant. She was the survivor. The evidence crushed them: wiretaps, the ledger, Brooks' testimony, Langford's plea. Judge William Baxter was sentenced last. He stood before a new federal judge, broken, hair unkempt, arrogance gone. You were entrusted to uphold the law, the judge said. Instead, you sold it. You mocked the vulnerable. You turned your gavel into a weapon against the poor. Baxter wept. I just want to go home. Mrs. Washington wanted to go home too, the judge replied. I'm being more generous than you were. He sentenced Baxter to 25 years in federal prison, no parole, full forfeiture of everything. As marshals led him away, Baxter looked at Clara, eyes begging. She gave one slow nod, balance restored. No smile. Justice wasn't a joke. Mayor Grant got 30 years. Langford, for cooperating, received 15. But the real win came later when the Department of Justice seized every asset under civil forfeiture, the condos, accounts, land, everything. A few months later, Caleb drove his mother downtown to the community center. The room was packed with East Side neighbors. When Clara walked in, they rose and cheered. Caleb handed her the deed. The properties are now a community land trust. You own them, all of you. No more landlords, no more evictions. You run it. Clara's hands shook with joy. She stepped to the microphone. They thought we were weak because we didn't have money. They forgot that even the tallest tower starts in the dirt. When you try to bury us, you forget we're seeds. She looked at Caleb leaning against the wall, that quiet smile on his face. My son brought the badge, she said, tears falling. But God brought the justice, and today, we are finally home. Later that winter, the apartment on the second floor glowed with warmth. The smell of Clara's sweet potato pie drifted down the hall. Caleb sat at the table in a comfortable sweater, watching his mother laugh with neighbors, looking 10 years younger. He thought about Baxter in a cold cell, and Grant stripped of power. Karma hadn't just hit back. It had knocked them out cold. Clara set a slice of pie in front of him and kissed his cheek. Eat up, Special Agent. You've got work tomorrow. Plenty more bad guys out there. Caleb picked up his fork. Yes, ma'am. But none of them are ever messing with you again. Clara smiled, the smile of a woman who had won the war. I know. Now eat your pie. They underestimated her poverty and ignored her son. That was their fatal mistake. Mrs. Washington didn't just get her home back. She brought down an entire empire of corruption because she raised a son who understood that a badge isn't for power, it's for protection. Justice Under Review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories. In a world where the little guy often gets crushed, sometimes the gavel finally strikes the hand that holds it. Judge Baxter learned the hard way. When you laugh at justice, justice eventually stops laughing with you. What do you think? Did the judge and the mayor get exactly what they deserved? Or was 25 years too light for ruining so many lives? Let me know below. If this story of justice hit you right in the soul, hit that like button. It really helps. And subscribe so you never miss the next one where karma comes collecting. Thanks for listening. See you next time. In the tense hush of a crowded courtroom, the gavel slammed down with merciless finality as Judge Harold Benson glared at the black man before him. Jamal Harris stood accused of a minor offense, but to Benson, he was just another thug to crush. The judge mocked his appearance, dismissed his defender's pleas, and forced a guilty plea with threats of maximum time. Rules aren't for people like you, Benson snarled, his words laced with raw racial contempt. He smirked, certain he had just swept another nobody off his streets. But Jamal Harris was no ordinary defendant. He was Special Agent Kevin Grant of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force, deep undercover to expose the very rot in Benson's courtroom. Every insult, every biased threat, every display of raw power had been captured on a hidden wire. When the moment came, Jamal stood tall, shed the defeated posture, and declared with commanding clarity, "Your Honor, My name is not Jamal Harris. I am Special Agent Kevin Grant of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The courtroom froze. Benson's smug face drained of color as the man he had just sentenced revealed himself as the federal agent who had been gathering evidence against him. Federal agents stormed in. Benson was arrested on the spot for bribery, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and deprivation of rights under color of law. His empire of hate collapsed under the weight of the very justice he had twisted. This powerful story carries one of life's most profound and emotional lessons. Asterisk, asterisk. Never let prejudice blind you to the worth of another human being, because the person you mock and try to destroy today may be the very one who holds the authority and courage to bring your entire world crashing down. Asterisk. Asterisk. Judge Benson saw only skin color and assumed weakness. He never imagined the quiet man before him carried the badge and the moral strength to expose decades of systemic cruelty. The tale reminds us that true justice is patient but relentless. It often arrives in plain clothes with quiet dignity, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Life will sometimes place you before someone who judges you harshly because of how you look or where you come from. In those painful moments, remember Agent Kevin Grant. Hold your head high, speak your truth with calm resolve, and trust that the universe has a way of balancing the scales with breathtaking precision. No one is truly above the law, and no one is truly beneath its protection. Respect is not a favor. It is the foundation of a just society. The tables can turn when we least expect it, and karma has a way of arriving wearing the very robe we thought made us untouchable. If this heartfelt story of hidden strength, systemic bias, and the quiet power of truth moved you deeply, if it reminded you never to judge too quickly or stay silent when dignity is attacked, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been dismissed or witnessed prejudice that later led to a powerful reckoning? Your story could give hope to someone feeling powerless right now. If you love emotional, inspiring life lessons wrapped in gripping tales of courage and accountability, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful chapter. Let's build a community that values respect, fairness, and human dignity for every single person. Thank you for watching. Your support means everything. See you in the next inspiring story. Justice Under Review. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss our latest stories.